I am a big believer that the variety of casual EDH is one of its strengths, especially in Bracket 3, where there are more powerful wild plays. I love the fact that in one game I can play against Voltron Storm Aristocrats, and the next game I can play against Tokens, Enchantress, and some gimmick deck built around an alt wincon. The variance and openness of decks you see is a lot of fun. But with all the different decks out there, how can you possibly be ready to face them all with just one deck? Some might even argue that's impossible to do so. If you want to see that argument and others, go watch the podcast episode we did with Travis Gafford. I'll put a little card here for you. But Travis is wrong, and here is my guide to show you how to make a deck able to win any game. First, I want to tell you about my new deck box of choice, the new Dragon Box. These are Dragon Shield's newest deck boxes from the Dragon Lock system. All of them have this cute little locking mechanism where they sort of fit into these two holes that solidly hold the lid on. They come in multiple sizes. There's the 100 plus if you want to fit a commander deck in there. There's the 80 plus, perfect for a Dan deck. And the 150 plus, which is the largest one if you want to fit a commander deck and one of their dice holders in there as well. Additionally, all of this can fit into the Dragon Vault, which is a big carrying case that holds all of these. Currently, I have all 6 of my commander decks in my Dragon Vault, and it is very convenient to carry that around instead of having to lug around a bunch of separate deck boxes. Each individual deck box is pretty sweet. They have a little window that you can put your commander into if you want. And yes, even with my very thick triple-sleeved commanders that have these custom art sleeves on them, they do still fit in the little window there. It's a tight fit, but it does work. These are really great. I love the high quality material, the colors, the feel of it. They're really awesome. I'm very impressed with these deck boxes. My cards are absolutely not going in a different box anytime soon. If you want to get some of yours today, there is a link below to Dragon Shield's website. And if you use my code TTM at checkout, you'll get a discount, plus it supports the channel. I want to say up front that this video is not going to be me just telling you to play more removal. There are issues presented by certain strategies and decks which are not perfectly dealt with by just removal. Sometimes you need a more structural change to your deck rather than just adding in some spot removal. But sometimes removal is the thing that you need. If you have 0 artifact removal in your deck, then you might lose to an artifact deck. That feels pretty obvious, right? If you play a bunch of games and you're constantly thinking to yourself, oh no, this artifact caused me to lose the game, then maybe you do lack some artifact-related interaction. Interaction is one of the first things I check in my decks. I want to make sure I can deal with a threat of any type. So, can I remove an artifact, enchantment, creature, or land? Don't worry, all of these removal slots can be rolled up into one single card. Anything that destroys target permanent will cover almost all your bases, or in the case of my Jori En deck, the ability to counter target spell or bounce any permanent. I am going to be referring to this deck a decent amount in the video as a frame of reference. Link below if you want to look at the deck and follow along. Also, if you're looking at my Architect page and you don't see this list there, check the retired decks folder. I change my decks a lot and just fiddle with them, so don't be surprised if this list has some changes or I'm playing a different Is It pile next week. Cards like Capsize in this deck cover most of my bases. And of course, counter spells, specifically generic ones that can hit any type, can be easily used to make sure this deck can deal with any threat. I also always want to make sure my deck can handle anything that is indestructible. Chaos Warp is an awesome card here because it ticks every single box I have mentioned. It hits every type and gets around indestructible, making it a must-have in a lot of my casual decks. Lastly, you want cards to remove pieces that have protection, Hexproof Shroud or some annoying ward cost maybe. This can easily be covered by any board wipe. Almost all board wipes will be able to get past any of those keywords. And if you're really concerned, a Perilous Vault should be able to beat any board state in any color combination. Lastly, I want specific interaction that my list might be missing due to the way it's constructed. So for this Jori En list, specifically, I have Summary Dismissal. This lets me beat uncounterable cards since my deck is already so focused on blue removal. Alright, enough talk about removal. Just make sure you have some in your deck that can hit anything. Stay flexible. Let's talk about inevitability. A lot of commander decks I build have cards in them that get there, for lack of a better term. Cards that can take over a game if they have the space to do so, usually with incremental advantage. For my Jori En list, this would be Search for Azcanta or Capsize. Search lets me continually dig for more interaction or card draw even after all my resources have been expended, and it is something that dodges most wraths, so I can usually keep activating it. Capsize is able to continuously bounce a threat and stall until I'm able to actually counter it, and has been the bane of many players' games. Both of these provide value over time, and are relatively difficult to disrupt. Inevitability can be found in many other places. Something like a Mind's Dilation is one of my favorites, Portal to Phyrexia is another, Crucible of Worlds and Urza's Saga can be inevitability. You'll eventually make enough constructs to swing in. Creatures with activated abilities or other mana sinks can do the same. These types of value engines means that your deck has play in the later portions of the game. I see a tremendous amount of decks which do one thing and have no ability to scale into the late game when resources are depleted. This is why so many decks fold to a board wipe. In the late game, they're drawing into cards that have the same effectiveness that they did in the earlier portions of the game. This is why X spells are so good in Commander. A Genesis Wave for 5 can be a great value play. A Genesis Wave for 10 can be a game ender. Making sure you have some kind of X draw spell or mana sink will help you win games that go long. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Mind's Eye. Yes, I know it is rather slow, but especially in lower bracket games like Bracket 2, it's really great and has won me so many games. Beyond inevitability, one thing I like to have in my decks is a plan B. Look, having a gimmick is very fun. Recently, I've been brewing around with Spy Kit. Tomer suggested I use it with cards like The End, which is a funny combo. But it can't be the whole deck, right? Let's say I do build a list with Spy Kit and Arden in the command zone with Silas Wren. Arden lets me put Spy Kit on an opponent's creature, so I can then cast The End and yoink every non-legendary creature out of my opponent's deck. And Silas Wren lets me recover the Spy Kit if it gets destroyed. But what if Spy Kit gets exiled? Well, then I need a plan B. In a deck like that, it can simply be playing other powerful equipment that Arden can use to swing with. In my Jori En list, as an example, since this is a good stuff control pile, there is no theme or gimmick, meaning a plan B is actually not necessary. I purely want to outvalue my opponents. This might beg the question, why am I using Jori En as an example here? But it's to illustrate these are not hard rules. Your deck might specifically be suited to ignore them. Value piles like Jori En that are just focused on generic control don't really need a plan B because plan A isn't really something that can be disrupted by exiling a key piece. But what all decks need is defense. Not for your life total necessarily, but for your strategy. Players often fall into the idea of my deck does A, B, then C. Ramp early game, cast equipment, attack with commander. But when you focus on that, you forget to ask questions like, what if someone attacks me first? What if they remove your equipment? What if they have something that prevents you from attacking? Some of this can be solved with removal, of course, but the rest can also be done with protection. Ways to dodge board wipes, redirect interaction, or sneak past blockers can be really great ways to add protection for your game plan. This part of deck building often takes a long time to get right. It's near impossible to think of every situation that might cause you to lose on your first go around. So this is where decks, at least for me, are tuned most often, realizing what my game plan is missing and then covering those holes as I play and test the list. I also want to talk about speed for just a little bit. One way to avoid a farewell is, of course, blow up your opponent before they get to 6 mana. This is explained more in my inverse removal theorem video, so check that out if you want a more in-depth explanation. But speed can also help you out here. You don't need protection or removal if you can just blitz through your opponents and take them out. So what happens if you only have a few answers to a problematic permanent or card? How do you actually get them? Now the obvious solution is Tutors. These help you find the right card at the right moment. A Teleria West taps for blue when you need it, but can be used to find a Ghost Quarter if you need to get rid of a pesky land. But that isn't the only solution. Back to my Jori En list here, there are no Tutors. But all my removal effectively hits everything. I have maxed out on flexibility. I'm even playing cards that have a higher mana cost, because they have more flexibility. In casual Commander, flexibility is king, and I think slightly less mana efficient removal can be worth playing if the flexibility in what it removes and what the card does goes up. Additionally, my list is chock full of card draw. It's in the command zone, it's in the spells, it's in the engines. I have cards for days. Card draw is a key factor here. Letting you see more cards means you can more likely find what card you actually need. Putting it all together, what do we have? We have a deck where you have flexible removal, lots of card draw, protection for your game plan, or a plan B if things go wrong. And these days, it's easier than ever to accomplish this. MDFCs like Balagad Recovery help you protect your game plan by getting key cards back. Sundering Eruption lets you hit a land and also push for lethal. Sink into Stupor lets you have flexible removal, which can hit most anything. All of these cards don't even take real slots in your deck, since they can be lands if needed. I count MDFCs as lands when I'm building my decks. When you combine these with more flexible removal spells that hit a big swath of card types and a reasonable amount of card draw, you should, on average, be able to find a piece of flexible removal sometime during the game. This gives your deck the potential to win any game. Of course, you won't win every game. That is impossible. But building a deck that can win any game means you always have an out to play to. When things go wrong, you know that there is something in your deck that can save you, so you can try for that. I know my Jori En deck can, no matter how crazy the board state gets, find a way to win. One single Expropriate can flip that whole board state on its head and get me out of a jam. So I can try for that outcome. Play to this out. Chump block to get an extra turn. Bounce a creature to save me one more turn, until I finally find that out and make the crazy comeback. Or I top deck a land and lose. This deck can win any game. I am confident that even in a terrible board state, I can pull out a win and stabilize if I play well and draw the right cards. Again, of course, that doesn't always happen. But I do have a lot more fun in Commander when I play towards that out, when I have hope that I can turn the game around, rather than giving up at the first sign of trouble. I feel this style of deck building will let your list and others shine more often. I find Commander games more fun when every deck feels like a threat at one point or another. Building interactive decks that are flexible and able to recover is one way to achieve this. My hope is that with this video, you will take a close look at your decks, and with a bit of tuning, make it so they are more flexible, interactive, and hopefully more fun. Brian Wilson asks, how was Vegas? What are you looking forward to in Dallas? And what would be the best way to get a game in when you're in Dallas? Great question. Vegas was sweet. Hopefully we will have a video of the live version of the podcast for you, so subscribe, stick around for that. It'll hopefully be on the channel soon. If you don't know, I'm going to Cool Stuff Inc. Con in Dallas in about a week, and I'm looking forward to actually going to vendors. Vegas was way too packed. I couldn't really get any cards signed. I couldn't really go to vendors. The lines were crazy long. Didn't have time for it. So I'm going to actually buy and sell and trade some cards. And if you're looking to get a game in with me in Dallas, other than my meet and greet time slots, I should probably just be hanging around the Commander area. So best way to do so is just look for me there. Of course, I know you're a patron, Brian, just like everyone else who asks these questions, so you can always DM me on Patreon if you're looking for me. Thanks to all my patrons for their support, and special thanks to my Tier 3 patrons whose names you see here. If you want to be in the credits or ask questions like Brian did, all you got to do is click the link below.